Now, cabinet leaks are again capturing attention today. The Foreign Minister and Malcolm Turnbull are among those deploring leaks. Another, Ian Macfarlane, has called on the leaker to quit cabinet. Each seems to have shared in what the Prime Minister likes to call a come-to-Jesus moment.
Did you feel it?
Well, Jesus should be in all of our hearts. We need a culture of trust and confidentiality so that people can have candid discussions.
Also today, the government clears the way for some superannuation changes to potentially be taken to the next election, and what the Labor documentary series, The Killing Season, has to do with the Neighbours soapy series. We'll clear that one up today on Capitol Hill. Well, a cabinet discussion on a controversial potential citizenship change is still absorbing large amounts of ministerial time, more than a week after it happened. Malcolm Turnbull's spoken at length and for the first time about his caution towards tough laws and denies he was the leaker. Ian Macfarlane concedes the leaks were accurate. Julie Bishop's also denying leaking, and pretty much everyone who might have does too.
Can I tell you, I don't leak from cabinet meetings, and I didn't leak from the last one either. I don't leak from them. Well, look, that's a matter for the Prime Minister, but can I just say to you, we have to have a culture not of secrecy. I mean, this is not a question of being secret. I mean, it's simply we need a culture of trust and confidentiality so that people can have candid discussions.
OK, colleagues, well, look...
Leaking from cabinet is a shameful thing to do. It lets down the country, it lets down the colleagues. The best thing we can do with the great honour and extraordinary rare privilege of being a cabinet minister is to give our best every day.
I don't honestly know if someone has leaked and who has leaked. There's certainly been some very accurate statements made in newspapers in relation to discussions that were had in cabinet.
Do you think that they should be? Do you think those leakers should be sacked?
In the end, if people can't abide by the confidentiality of the cabinet room, then they should leave the cabinet, and that should be their decision. But where it becomes apparent, then obviously the Prime Minister's made it clear that he's going to take action.
Just in the last week...
Some people like to suggest that some people are tougher on terrorism or tougher on national security than others. Let me say this to you. Honest people, knowledgeable people, really well-informed people can have very different views about what the right measures are on national security, and have very different views about the right balance between, say, citizenship and national security. It's not good enough that laws simply be tough. You know, this is not a sort of a bravado issue. They've got to be the right laws. You've got to get the measure right.
So now we're in the zone where we've got ministers lying about lying. They're all issuing their denials, but the problem for Tony Abbott is that every one of his cabinet ministers said it wasn't them. Then who did leak national security discussions?
Well, it was Labor that wrote the textbook on political division 5 years ago, and the looming broadcast of the ABC documentary The Killing Season is much anticipated by political tragics here. In the only snippet available so far, Julia Gillard's spoken of a 2007 confrontation with her leader, which she describes as bullying and which Kevin Rudd utterly denies. But from Bill Shorten down, everyone in modern Labor is wincing and disowning that chapter of the party's history.
After the tactics meeting broke up, he very physically stepped into my space, and it was quite a bullying encounter. It was a menacing, angry performance.
That is utterly false. Utterly, utterly false.
This is history. It is not a secret that there was disunity in the Rudd Labor government and the Gillard Labor government. That's not a secret.
Do you recall any angry exchanges with her?
Never. Never with Julia. Including on the night that she marches into the office to announce the coup.
That is in the past. I think I've been very fortunate to have quite a marvellous run of unity within the Labor Party.
In the wake of that difficult period, Labor reformed. We changed. We're a different Labor Party.
I often wonder if you should go back in time and watch those old Neighbours episodes and think, could have Jason Donovan not had the mullet? Could Alan Dale have practiced that American accent before he went on to Entourage? Could have Kylie not sung Locomotion as her first song? Well, I can't do anything about it, can I? It's all part of history. We can talk about it now.
And no doubt many more will when that episode, the first episode, goes to air next week. Well, there's been uproar in Parliament today when Labor moved to fast-track a vote on small business tax breaks. The government's been pressuring Labor for days to allow the easy passage of the package at the core of its budget. Bill Shorten moved this morning for a vote to happen immediately, but government MPs voted it down.
Today we put our money where our mouth was. Every Labor MP, nearly every Labor MP there to vote for the small business package. What on earth is the government thinking when they voted today against fast-tracking their own measures to help small business? It was one of the silliest acts of political stupidity the Abbott government's done.
I want small business to have a parliamentary day in the sun, to focus on the Parliament, focusing on their needs, because you know why? The Senate doesn't reconvene any earlier. When the bill passes later today, that doesn't make the Senate sit any sooner. So it was a complete stunt to mask Labor's failure on small business. Bill Shorten should be condemned for what he's done. A shabby act to deny small business an opportunity to have their interests the focus of the Parliament today, and that's why we voted against the gag.
Now, is superannuation policy untouchable forever or just for the next 18 months until the next election? Well, a former banker who headed the government's financial system inquiry, David Murray, wants it open for change. He's said so, and the Assistant Treasurer, Josh Frydenberg, has told a conference in Canberra that the coalition could consider changes later this term to put to the people at next year's election.
If we don't do anything, we're going to keep a system in which member disengagement keeps feeding on itself. And in financial systems where there's always this problem of information asymmetry, disengagement breeds lack of trust and lack of confidence, which can bring down systems. And if we keep going this way, disengagement makes politicisation of the system all the more attractive for the political process. It drives more constant change. That feeds on itself and grows more disengagement. In fact, we've got to go the other way.
The government came to office with a commitment not to make any adverse or unexpected changes to superannuation in this term of government. In contrast to the opposition, and after years of constant change, we are providing a period of stability and certainty. For this reason, the government believes that now is not the right time to embark on a broad-based review of the retirement income system. We already have the tax white paper process underway, and we are responding to the recommendations of the Financial System Inquiry. The government will, of course, consider good ideas put forward as part of the tax white paper process, and changes recommended by the tax white paper process will be taken to the Australian people at the next election.
So that's Josh Frydenberg flagging the possibility of moving into super changes, but only later in this term for potentially another term. Labor, though, is already committed to removing super concessions for higher contributors. Its Shadow Treasurer, Chris Bowen's been speaking to the same conference, and he's also open to considering the government's new changes to the pensions assets test.
The government tells us the age pension is unsustainable, but at the same time tells us it doesn't want to do anything to address the rapidly rising superannuation tax concessions. But the facts are this. The age pension is set to grow by around 5% per year over the next 4 years. Superannuation earnings concessions are growing at more than 4 times this annual rate. Earnings concessions alone are set to double over the next 4 years to more than $30 billion. It is indefensible to suggest that we can leave superannuation tax concessions for another day. It's also irresponsible. We also understand the superannuation concessions are just one part of the retirement income equation. That's why we are taking the time to look closely at the government's proposed changes to the age pension.
Now, one person not in Parliament this week is the Defence Minister. He's taking his first look at the Japanese submarine Australia could be in the market to buy. Kevin Andrews has been in Tokyo and is about to visit the shipyard in Kobe, where the Japanese Soryu sub is built. He's keeping open all options on which country Australia might buy from and where the boats will be built.
What we've asked the potential partners is to look at an overseas build, an in-Australia build or a hybrid build. Now, I don't know what they will come back with. I've already seen some publicity from various quarters about what they may or may not do, but until we get the final bids towards the end of the year, we don't know, and it may well be that different countries put in some options in terms of what they're capable of doing in that regard. So, I mean, that's part of the competitive evaluation. I'm not going to prejudge what each of the countries might do, and there are a variety of options that are open to them. I mean, it may well be that that workers are trained in the country where the winning bid comes from and then return to Adelaide. It could be that workers from that country go to Australia. I just don't know, and I would be speculating as to what that bid might be, because I suspect there'll be a range of options put to us. The Japanese submarine is about the size that we're looking for in Australia, but obviously it requires some changes. But what we want is a submarine which has the endurance of the columns, that has superior stealth capacities to the columns, and is one which is going to be interoperable in terms of the weapons system with the US. Now, that's going to require design changes and modifications in the case of whichever submarine we buy from whichever country, and so it's important that each of the countries, Japan included, understand that.
Now, in keeping with the tradition of the last 2 weeks, we have to take a look at what's been happening in Senate estimates hearings today. And official shutters have gone up at one committee over the greeting Tony Abbott got on his Anzac visit to France. Of course, there's been widespread reporting that Australia's ambassador to France, Stephen Brady, had been told his male partner couldn't be in the welcoming party. Labor's Senate leader, Penny Wong, has had her first chance to quiz the head of the Foreign Affairs Department, Peter Varghese. They've established that Ambassador Brady never offered to resign over the kerfuffle, but Mr Varghese will not reveal whether this option was canvassed in conversations he had with the ambassador.
I think I had a discussion with him the day following Anzac Day.
Right. And who initiated that discussion?
Mr Brady did.
Right. So did he call you?
He did.
Right. Can you tell me what, did Mr Brady give you an account of what had occurred upon the Prime Minister's arrival?
Senator Wong, I don't want to go into the details of private discussions that I have with our ambassadors abroad.
Did he tell you that he was asked to request that his partner wait in the car?
Senator Wong, we are not going to, by any process that you of attrition or examination or innuendo that you wish to pursue, we are not going to put Mr Varghese or any officer into the position of being required to disclose private conversations in this forum. Did
Ambassador Brady canvass resignation with you in either of those telephone conversations or by other communication?
Senator, I've confirmed that he did not offer to resign in his discussions with me, and I am not proposing to go into other aspects of that discussion.
Now, across in another committee, Budget Estimates has also exposed the depth of feeling among Nationals and LNP members over the labelling of free-range eggs. Queenslander Matt Canavan is angry about the way the rules are applied by the Competition and Consumer Commission. Those rules include that free-range chickens must have access to outside areas on most ordinary days, say the rules. But Senator Canavan's having great difficulty working out how anyone could work out what is ordinary in the mind of a chicken.
I fear that having the ACCC in charge here is like having the fox in charge of the hen house. The ACCC wants themselves to they believe that they should put themselves in the minds of a reasonable consumer, and a reasonable consumer would expect that most chickens would go outside most days. Well, I ask the question, what about the reasonable chicken? The chicken may not want to go outside. It might be a day like today, it's really cold and they don't want to go outside. The sky might fall in. Lots of bad things can happen outside, and sometimes chickens don't want to go outside. So before the ACCC ends up with egg on its face, I ask them, please, put yourselves in the mind of the chicken. And once you've done that, you might be able to come back and answer the age-old question, why did the chicken cross the road?